Hey guys, today we're gonna remove an old door and install a pocket door frame. We're gonna frame for the opening and install the door unit. So come on, it'll be fun, we'll do it together. So as you can see here, we had an existing door opening. It was an operable door, a swinging door. Inside this bathroom here was very tight and confined. We had the idea of, instead of having that door swing into the functional bathroom space, why not install a pocket door? Okay, very practical, very functional for a space like this. In this case, we removed the door jamb, we removed the door itself, we stripped the wall, the existing drywall, and expose the framing behind it. So our step-by-step process today is going to show you how to reframe an existing opening for a new pocket door frame, and then installing the door frame itself, the pocket door. The first step is to frame the opening per the size of the new pocket door frame, assemble the pocket door frame itself, and then install the unit, okay? So first step in determining the opening or the rough framing size is to determine what size opening you need to create, okay? So the door unit itself is 2'6", a 30-inch door, okay? So with pocket door frames, you multiply the door unit itself, the width of the door, which is 30 inches, times 2, so it'd be 60 inches, and then you add 2 inches. So that would be your rough framing opening in the clear. So we'll go look at our existing space, we'll figure out how we're gonna do that and how we're gonna achieve that, and then we'll start working on it. As you guys can see, we've got an existing opening. We've got a little bit of room to play with on this side. We can take out some more drywall, but keeping in mind that there's a toilet directly on the other side of this wall partition here. So we don't want to push the door too far that way. However, we need to accommodate for the larger opening that we're going to be creating. So the old opening was a 2-foot door. In order to maintain and keep a little bit of space on the jamb here on the inside where these two walls come together, I want to maintain this margin. I want to shove or shift the door this way, and then from there my layout will start. I've got to enlarge this existing space. Okay, so I found my next nearest stud. I'm going to plumb down and then saw cut halfway on that stud my drywall. Take the drywall off, and then I'll have the framing exposed. So as you can see, when you're dealing with an existing condition, always have your electrician or your plumber or whatever you find in the wall determine and help you address the existing condition. So in this case, our electrician's already looked at this. He simply told us move the wires out of the way, and then he'll refeed everything back later. I'm going to carefully remove everything, make sure that the breakers have been turned off. We know we're going to start here with our existing opening. Okay, so I'm using the existing framing as my kind of benchmark to kind of work back to create my new opening. So in this case, we have a 30-inch door. So I'm gonna go a little bit more. I'm gonna go 31 inches using our existing sill plate. That represents new framings. From here over, this is all gonna be door, okay? The trick is making sure that you have enough clearance. You can always fill in later, but don't short yourself, and then when you go to install your door, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't create enough opening. So you can always create a little bit more, but typically the rule is 2 inches, okay? I'm gonna give myself 1.5 inch trimmer there, and then 1.5 inch king. You also, if you want to jump on one of our earlier videos, I kind of explain in detail what a king stud is versus a trimmer. But yeah, in this case, we're gonna have a king stud, a trimmer, and then we'll start our opening going that way. So you can see, that's where our new wood member is gonna go. Our electrical's in the way. So I'm gonna carefully remove and disassemble the electrical and kind of push it out of the way. I'll tuck it up over here. Pretty simple. You need a flathead screwdriver and a little bit of patience. This is the electrical switching. All this stays assembled. You don't want to take this apart. Unless you're planning on removing the wiring itself, leave this all intact. Get in here. Usually they attach the box to the stud with nails or screws. Just want to carefully kind of come in here and pry it back. So in this case, they use screws. You can see they use little drywall screws. So I'm just gonna kind of move this out of the way. Take this block out. We've got our framing basically opened up here so that we can add our filler framing and then go. Now I'm gonna mark the other side. So I've got, that's basically where my door starts, right? So what did we say? We said we need 62 inches. So 62 inches from there, that's what we need in the clear for our pocket door frame. Okay, so the pocket door frame needs 62 inches in the clear for us to get it in. So I've got to take out all the framing that is in between that 62 inches. So same thing, king, trimmer. So I'm just kind of removing all the staples here. Trick to remove staples, guys, just to kind of take a set of pliers and just kind of slip it up against the wire on that leg right there, and then just use the fulcrum of the framing itself to kind of prop the wire out, and then it just kind of falls out. So just make sure you don't pinch against the wire, because if you do, it'll spark, especially when you're working around live wires. Just kind of use that, just kind of pivot it. So now we've got the electrical box kind of out of the way. The next step is to carefully remove these wires right here. I take a Sawzall, I cut here and here. I knock out this block section between basically where the hole was drilled for the electrical, knock it out, and then you'll just be able to pull the outlet right out. So. You just kind of score it on both sides, and then the hole itself is kind of acting as an opening. You just kind of knock it out. If you have a situation like this, you can kind of put the wood up against another piece and just kind of split it. That kind of helps too. So now we've got some openings, or some access to our framing. So there's basically a soffit here. They drop the ceiling probably to allow for running wires, miscellaneous. The actual top plate, if you see, goes up past the soffit and is about, 4 or 5 inches up into the framing there. So we want to make sure when we're reinforcing or adding new framing, especially to this wall, that our framing goes from plate, sill plate, to top plate. The other piece to remember or to think about when assessing an existing condition, taking out an opening and making it larger, I want to make sure that the wall itself is not load bearing. If it is, you got to address it via shoring or temporary support, okay? So the best way, the easiest way for you to determine whether or not a wall is load bearing or not is to inspect from above and determine if there's something landing on the wall. In this case, we were able to determine through some investigation that this wall is not load bearing. This is basically just filler framing for the wall itself. So we're just making sure we're getting everything out of our way so that when we go to frame the wall itself, we don't have any issues. Now, we've got our opening set. Okay, so now the next step is to set our king studs. Okay, so the king studs are what go from plate to plate, sill plate to top plate. The header that we're gonna use to support the door opening itself nails directly into the king. First thing we do is set our kings, then we can measure our header and put it in. Okay, so king stud first. So it should be 92 1/4. I got 96 1/4 on my studs. When we ordered our material, we got 8-foot studs. So 96-inch studs, okay, to fill in this framing. In this case, the studs are longer. They're 96 1/4. Okay, so a trick or an easy way to skirt around this, instead of going back to the store and buying new studs, like 10-footers, for example, is to just put an additional sill plate here. So I'm gonna put a 2x4, fur this up with 2x4, and then I'll measure it will be long enough. 17 1/2. What I like to do is I like to work with all my framing lumber kind of in one spot. But I'm gonna measure 17 1/2 for our bottom sill block there that we're gonna use. So securing and fastening my framing members, we can use construction grade screws. Those work. In this case, I'm gonna use nails. So basically it's nice and snug. These are 3 1/4 inch gun nails. Nailer. Nail it off. So now I've got a sill plate there. I brought this up. Now my measurements should be long enough. So we've got 95 even. Give us a little 95er. Now remember, I covered my mark up, so I'm gonna mark that 62 inches again. There's where my opening starts. 62 inches all the way over here. Stay. right? 62 is in the clear plus 1.5 inches. Oh my gosh, it's almost good though. So I'm just checking my stud, getting it as close to plumb as I can. All right, so remember we talked about the plate to plate application and how important it is? So we've got our plate nailing here with our gun. Here, it's really inaccessible, so I'm gonna use screws with a drill to kind of get into that hard to reach spot. So, yeah, got it. 1, 2, perfect. So now we've got our king. We're gonna do one more king over here. So basically the same process over again. Bingo. One more. Bingo! Now you can see we've got our king studs in. Nailed off at the bottom, screwed off at the top. Okay, so we've got our basic opening. Now we need to install our header. On pocket doors, we can go look at the pocket door frame itself and we'll measure exactly how big to make the bottom of the header. So now we've got our pocket frame. A couple of things with pocket door frames themselves. They're a little different than obvious, standard door frame. The easiest way to assemble it, because it can kind of look tricky when you open up the box, is this metal tab. Usually there's a metal tab or a plastic tab on the bottom. That's to anchor the pocket frame itself to the subfloor, concrete, plywood, whatever it is. Okay, so that's the bottom of the unit. So you want to kind of lay it out, place the bottom of the unit where it's appropriately supposed to be, and then you lay out the top. So now we look at the top. Now we've got a track assembly that's already been installed into basically a frame. So now there's some assembly that's required here. This piece of trim surface mounted on top of the frame itself is a finished piece. That kind of helps dictate and determine the layout of it. So when installing or building the pocket frame itself, you want to keep in mind that the finished frame or the finished part of it goes on the door opening side, which is going to be right here. So the door opening goes here, you slide it into this pocket. This represents the finished part of the opening side. Now you can see here that the manufacturers come and pre-grooved this for us, which is basically for these metal tabs. So very simply, you just kind of slot these metal tabs in, and then working on this side at the same time, you just kind of fish it in together. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be assembled. I'll put some nails right here to make sure that that doesn't go anywhere. There's no really need to put any nails here because we're gonna put another leg on this side. In this area here where we're attaching the frame together, you can use a finish gun. I have some finished head screws that I'm gonna use. They were in the back of my truck. I'm gonna use them with the special drill bit, secure the frame together, and then we're ready to move on to the next phase. The frame comes with one more piece. The other portion of the door frame comes with a milled 3/4 inch piece. Okay, so this is jam stock, comes with the pocket door unit itself. You can see it has a groove side, okay, and then on the other side, it's finished. So obviously, we want the smooth side to face the door opening. Okay, that's the finished side. The groove side goes against the wall framing or the rough framing. Taking into consideration the layout of it, we're gonna place it, assuming that this is now our door opening, right? We want the finished side to face the door itself. So I'll grab some screws and attach this, and then we're good to go. I like to use screws because if you have to back something out or you made a mistake or something, it's really easy to take a screw apart as opposed to a nail. So. Now you can see this pocket doors has been assembled. It's ready to go. We know what our height is, our rough opening height. We can measure. So this is the frame itself. So we need 62 inches. So if I measure the frame right now, you can see I'm at 61.5. So I have a 1/2 inch of play, which is more than enough. We plumbed our studs up. We know we're plumbed. We're ready to go. Now, the height of the header, where to set that height. I'm simply gonna measure the bottom of my pocket door. Remember that tab touches the concrete or the floor, right? So I'm measuring from the tab up to the top of my frame. So I'm at 83.25. Okay, that's tight. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit, maybe 3/4 of an inch to play with the frame and make sure it's level and plumb. So I'm gonna put my head height at 84 inches. That'll give us 3/4 of an inch to massage the unit into place and make sure we have enough room to make it plumb and square. 84 inches is the bottom of our header. So now we need to go back into our framing. We are back in our space. 84 inches is our number, 84 inches. From the floor up to the bottom of the header, we need at least 84 inches. Can be more, less is not good, but 84 inches in the clear. So what I'm gonna do now on an existing condition, I'm gonna level the floor and see what's going on. I wanna see if it's up or down, and I wanna kind of take all my factors in consideration before making a decision on my height. So you can see here that the floor itself is higher on this end, not by much, so we're higher on that end. So if I measure 84 inches from my high end up and level over, I know I'm gonna have enough room here because this is lower, right? So I'm gonna measure from the high point of my concrete, 84 inches up, mark it, and then level over to the other king, and then that's the bottom of my header measure. 84 inches, right? Remember, this is our high point. It's okay to go a little more. If you have drywall screws that are in your way, the easiest way is to either knock them off or bend them over. Just bend them. Just roll your hammer. Okay, so now everything's out of the way. I'm gonna set a nail, since I'm doing this by myself, I'm gonna set a nail to the bottom of my header. So now I'm leveling over, simply. That's the bottom of my header, okay? So we decided to use a 4x6 header, should be more than sufficient. And now we need to measure up, since we're using a 4x6 header, which is nominal 5.5 inches. From that mark, we're gonna go up 5.5 inches, mark the top of it, and that's where we're gonna cut these existing studs and cripples to reuse them. Okay, so there's no reason to take them out altogether. I'm gonna mark them 5.5 inches up so that my new header can just go right up against them. Okay, so we're just gonna repurpose the existing frame. There's no reason to take it out. I'm measuring up now. That's the bottom of our header, right? I'm measuring up to the top of our header so we know where to cut. Top of the header. Do the same thing.
Could you say that again?
Perfect. See, that's where I need to cut. I'll cut those studs out, remove them, take all that framing out, and then I measure the header, put it up and in, and basically the opening's ready to go. Here we've got our header that we're gonna use for the door opening. We're gonna use a 4x6. Looks like this is the top. And we'll go install it. You want your trimmers snug. You don't want them over tight, but you want them snug so that they're creating nice support. And then here I'm at 80, 11, 16. That actually makes sense. This one's shorter than that one. And the reason why is because the floor's out. Oh, we're on to you. Little trick on cutting with a Sawzall, guys, to do this, because it's hard, because the blade is so big and it has a tendency to kind of get off, is just go slow. Let the teeth of the saw kind of do the work for you. You don't have to force it. Just kind of let the saw do it, and then you can kind of adjust it. You feather it as needed.
I'm going to tell your brother that you're doing a good job. You can tell him I can jerk it off.
So now that we've got the tops of all the studs cut, now I'm gonna cut the bottom where the nails come through, and then we'll just wiggle the studs out. Remember, the drywall is attached to the existing studs, so we'll have to wiggle the studs out. I'll show you how we'll do it. These guys should be loose. You just kind of carefully work your way out now. See? Just piece by piece. You know you're not attached to any electrical, right? We already took that apart. So now we're just carefully removing all the pieces we cut out. Now you guys can see all the stud framing is basically gone. Everything's cut out. It's not a structural wall, it's not load bearing. When I cut everything out, nothing moved, okay? So we cut out all the filler framing. We've removed all that framing. Now we've got to go back and just basically clean up all the nails that are sticking through. We got to notch these wires and get it out of the way. We also have to cut this sill plate out. So stud framing's gone, but now we've got to cut our sill back in order to accommodate our new pocket door. So header, trimmers, cut the sill plate out, and then we're ready to install the pocket door. Now that we've kind of cleaned up the space, we've removed any additional nails and items out of the way, we're ready to install the header support. And so I put a temporary cleat here just to kind of help me. So I'm gonna put the header in, nail off that side, come over here and nail off this side, and then finish nailing off these remaining wood members, and then we'll be able to put our trimmer in. Now it goes in. So this needs to be lifted up a little bit. What I'll do is I'll go grab my trimmer and I'll put my trimmer in and kind of help wedge it up a little bit. So I'll just finish nailing up the header. Maybe put one nail in just to kind of hold it. And then our last trimmer. I'm just gonna put one nail in it down low and one up high. We'll plumb up later once we get the door ready to go in. So this opening is now ready for pocket. Last thing I need to do is notch this framing right here and kind of tuck this out of the way. Now we're gonna work on the door itself and the hardware that comes with the pocket frame as far as installation. So every pocket frame is a little bit different. In this case, this is very, very simple. They give you quick, easy steps to install the hardware and the rolling system onto the door itself. We'll take the door outside and I'll show you how it's done. As you can see here, we opened up our package of hardware, came from the manufacturer, and they give you a couple different items. They give you a pack of screws, some mounting brackets. These are the brackets that go on top of the door. There's an adjustable wrench used for raising and lowering the door to kind of level it and make sure that it's sliding properly. And then you've obviously got your wheel guides. Look like little cars. These actually attach up underneath the pocket track system and slide. And then the brackets themselves, which we're gonna attach to the top of the pocket door, kind of slip inside here. And that's how it's attached. And when the door itself rolls, that's how it works. And so this adjustable screw can work it up or down, and that's what this wrench is for. The last piece they give you is a guide. This guide, it mounts to the bottom of the pocket door frame. Once the door unit is installed, it's installed to guide the door and make sure it doesn't hit on the sides of the jamb. First things first, we need to install the hanger brackets, which is what these are, 2 3/4 inches from the outside edge in the center. This is the top of the door, and I measure over 2 3/4 inches is the center. Okay, and then I do the same thing on the other side. I'm just gonna mark where I want to drill my first screw hole. So in this case, I'm just going to kind of start the screw. You can see I've got one screw set. Now we can work on the other one. And then we just repeat the process to the other side. Same thing on the other side. Cool. So now, with a regular screwdriver, you can kind of adjust, back it off as needed, and kind of move this up and down so that it's tight or centered. So now that we've installed the brackets, we're basically ready to install the door unit itself. So we'll put these brackets up in the track, and then we'll attach the door to the slides, and then we'll adjust them. All right, guys, so we're ready for the pocket door, and these yellow wires that I told you all along throughout the video are out of our way, and we were gonna notch around them, are in fact in our way. So, you know, try to get our door in like this, there's no way that we're gonna be able to do so. The doors are gonna hit right here. In essence, we do need to remove these wires, okay? So that was my mistake. What we've done is we've killed the power in here, guys. There's no power running to this outlet. Make sure that that's the case. We're gonna take apart this outlet here, pull these wires back, wrap them up so that they're safe, and then we should be able to install the doors. So, good thing Ben's not here to identify that I made a mistake.
Inspect the job site. Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
What time is it?
Just pull it apart. Okay, so there's our height, 84. and a little bit bigger there. So now we're gonna go get our door frame, which we already pre-assembled. We're gonna fit it, dry fit it, and then kind of just temporarily tack it in place and then start fine tuning it for plumb and square, okay? Tell me this is gonna fit. Nope, not gonna fit. I'm just dry fitting it right now just to make sure that we have play. Last thing I want to do is start putting a bunch of nails into it and then have it be not right. So it looks like it's gonna fit. We got plenty of room. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually take my finish gun here. In this case, I have a cordless nailer. I like to cheat this up just a little bit off the floor. We just want to make sure we have flexibility just to kind of hold it in place. Now you can see here, our pocket frame's loose. This is the side of the pocket door where the door is gonna, when it closes, it's gonna be sitting up again. So we wanna make sure that this is perfectly plumb. You can see as we're starting out, we're pretty good. If anything, I need to come that way at the top a little bit. These shims you can buy at Lowe's or any local lumber yard, and just kind of work my way under. So I know I'm gonna put an anchor here. So I kind of wanna shim this area up. Keeping in mind that everything we're doing here is adjustable, right? We're just adding temporary shims for now. Same thing on this back side. Shim this side up as needed. And then we're gonna take a look back at the level and see what it's doing. We need to go a little bit more. And it re-emphasizes the point, guys, when we're framing an opening, you wanna make sure that you give yourself enough room to adjust, right? Especially when you're dealing with existing conditions, right? So you've got existing concrete slab, you've got existing framing. Jordy said it a million times that nothing is ever perfect because the world's not perfect. Let's check our level, and it's pretty good right there. Pretty much perfect. So now I'm gonna go over here, check this side. What you do to one area of the door affects the other, right? So remember, we've got our temporary or our pin nails in there. It's not bad. So now this is telling me that I still need to go that way a little bit at the top, just a hair. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put another nail down low. I'm gonna gently shim the top over, and I'm gonna start cross taping. Typically what you wanna do is you wanna have a 1/2 inch, if that be the thickness of your drywall, 1/2 inch reveal on this side and a 1/2 inch on this side. A little bit of room in here to put a shim. So I'm gonna, as you see, I knock the shim in, it forces the door over a little bit. You don't want to overdo it, but I like to do the same thing to both sides. When I install doors is I don't like to nail into my shims yet until everything is finalized and we're ready to go. Then if I have screws, I'll use screws. If I have nails, I'll use nails. But I like to put nails, near where my shims are gonna go, so I have the flexibility to move the shims in and out as needed, okay? So once you nail through those shims, you're locked in. It's gonna be a pain in the butt to have to adjust those shims if you do need to make an edit to the existing frame, okay? So just a tip. Now we'll check this side and kind of see what it's doing. I put the level on this side. It's telling me that I need to move the bottom of my pocket frame here that way to close that gap. I'm gonna nail right above it. These nails that I'm using are 18 gauge. They're about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 long. They're fine for setting pocket door frame. This again, pretty much perfect. Here I'm at like 30 and 3/16. And then down low, should be really close to the same. 30 and 3/16.
Right.
It's really close to plumb. Everything is measuring properly. We want to make sure that this bottom portion of the door goes right up against the drywall. You can see the drywall here. You don't want to force it, so if it starts bending the actual framing or the frame of itself, then you know you have a problem. You don't want to force it. But here, I'm just going to gently put a pin nail, but that just kind of holds it in place. So now my frame is basically temped off, right, in all directions. Okay, so I'm grabbing on it, it's not moving. It's pretty plumb, and it's pretty square. You can see there's a bow in the middle. So what I like to do is just kind of start with a shim, maybe 1/3 of the way down, halfway down, and then 1/3 of the way up, and just kind of work my way over so that I bring this plumb. What you don't want to do is push it out too much so it crowns in. Then when you close the door, it'll hit that bump first. If anything, you want it to be just a hair crowned up against your framing itself, just a hair, okay? It's not a lot that we're working on, but you can kind of see. What you're taking a look at is the gap between the level and the jamb. So the gap between the level and the jamb, you kind of want it to kind of squeeze up. See how So it just kind of closes up a little bit. And you come down here and you do the same thing. Not watching this gap, but you're watching this gap, the gap between the level and the jamb. As you push on it, you see it just kind of folds in there. And you can always adjust it. And always take it back and adjust it. So right now I'm looking pretty good. So now I'll set a nail just above this shim. I can still move it if I want. I'm working my way up, we're good. There's a little bit of daylight here. When you set your nail, it sucks it in a little. Right before you set your nail, you kind of want to push the shim in just a little bit more than you normally would, because as soon as you nail it, it actually pushes over. When I nail these off right here, guys, the stud behind the jamb here is 3.5 inches. I don't want to nail on this side, because if I do that, it's gonna fold the jamb to the curvature of the shim, right? So I want to nail close to where the shim has engaged the jamb. We have identified and we've closed up that margin on this side of the door. Now we basically repeat the whole process on the other side. Up and into the hidden area here. We're ready to go grab the door now and try it out, see how it works. And I'll take my wheels, open up the screws all the way. You just kind of fish them up and in. And you kind of just, okay, so they're in. We've got our brackets. Now I'm gonna show you a trick that you need to do to all pocket doors in order to get these in. So there's a piece of trim that the manufacturer installs. Sometimes it comes in a piece on the side, sometimes it's installed. In this case, it was already installed. So you need to temporarily remove this piece, right? So you take the piece off temporarily, set it aside, and that'll allow you to easily get your door up and in. A lot of times you want to leave this off until after you're done painting too, because sometimes you want to take the door off of the track and paint it and spray it separately. So you just want to hold on to this piece, put it aside, make sure you don't lose it, but take the trim off. You line up your brackets to the wheels itself and then install it. So it's sliding nice. Sometimes it's a trick to get it on, right? Once it's on, you're in good shape. It's sliding good. You can see as we close up against our margin, our plumb door jamb, we need to adjust it a little bit, right? So that we have a nice, we're hitting here, we're not hitting here, but that can all be adjusted with the Allen wrench at a later date. So you don't necessarily want to do that now unless you're looking to paint it in the air. In this case, we're gonna paint it, after the fact. Okay, so we're gonna take the door off, respray it, put all the drywall in, mud everything, and then we'll put the door back in and we'll do the final adjustments on it. Put the trim back in place, and then the door's ready to go. But that's it. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. Last thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna attach the bracket to the concrete, which is what we talked about, because right now it's just kind of floating in the air. I left it out for now, or I didn't want to attach it until I wanted to make sure that the door was sliding properly and we didn't have any issues. Now that it's good, I'll drill a hole for that, put some shims underneath here, secure that to the concrete. I'll put some finished screws in my shims, and then we're ready to go and we're all done. What I like to do in this situation, guys, is I'll just kind of break up some shims, and then I'll sharpen them, and I'll put them in those holes. Door's not going anywhere. All right. right, that's it guys. How to install a pocket door where there used to be an operable swinging door. So if you remember in the beginning, we had an operable swinging door here. It was too small, didn't fit the space, it was crowding the bathrooms. So we opened up the framing, measured, knew exactly where to cut all our existing framing, put our support framing in, our new header, king studs and trimmers, cleaned up the space, put our pocket frame together, and then installed it in a few easy steps. So anybody can do it. It's a great utilization of space. Instead of opening up now into the bathroom, we have a very functional open entry. So if you liked this video, please let us know. If you'd like to see some more content along these same lines, let us know. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Thanks for your support in the channel.